It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, and now they are a after-hours parts dealer. Now, I shouldn't say after hours, because you can pick up the parts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon all the way up until they close, and their hours will will duplicate what the track's hours are, which they close either at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, depending on the night of the week. But you can call over to Buddy and get yourself a part for your Sport Mod, Modified, Hobby Stock, Stock Car, and Sport Compact. Looks like that's the realm that they're going to live in for the time being.
And you can also contact Buddy because they're going to do some consignment sales.
Cool.
So if you've got something in the shop there that you're thinking about selling and you only got one part, you don't have a truck full to go to a swap meet or something, go ahead and give Buddy a call and see what kind of deal you can work out with him.
Well, Dirk, we have been waiting all off season, and it's my humble opinion that the Daytona 500 did not disappoint. I think the stage racing did exactly what it was supposed to do. Typically, the Daytona 500, I shouldn't say typically, but the Daytona 500 can turn into a follow the leader. I think the stage racing, the end of the stage, the bonus playoff points, and the extra championship driver points really helped keep these guys double file and mixing it up for nearly the entire time of the stage. You could still feel, much like pre-stage racing, how there was that lull right through the middle of the race. You could kind of feel that in the middle of the stages, but luckily that only lasted for about 10 or 15 laps.
Well, you had enough guys that had torn up cars in the duels, so they had to go to the back. You had Jimmy Johnson back there. You had Brad Keselowski back there, amongst others. And so they were trying to work their way through the pack, so it got real racy the last couple laps of the first stage. Those guys had taken their time to get up into the top 10. The second stage had a few things go on. There was a few blown tires and stuff like that the guys had. Kyle Busch notably had some tire issues. The third stage, for the most part, they just could have cut out about 60 of the 80 laps.
Yeah.
Because they just followed the leader, which is exactly what they did last year. They followed the leader on the high line, easier on the tires, and everybody just kind of rode around happy where they were at. And then when it got racy at the end, at least it didn't turn into the Xfinity Series race where it was literally 7 green-white checkers. And I think if they have an issue with that again here in the next couple races, I think you'll see NASCAR go back to that 3 green-white checker rule, because in this race, they went 4 more green-white checkers, and it didn't change the winner.
Right. And all it did was just tear up more cars.
Oh, and they tore up a lot of cars.
Anytime anybody had an issue with the overtime policy and that 3 green-white checkers is what I was saying. These guys it was created to save equipment. And after a certain point, you just get tired and you're kind of sitting there thinking, okay, can we just crown a winner? Can we just end this race? And once again, NASCAR gave the fan base what they wanted, and oddly enough, almost immediately we saw a repercussion of that. Now, we may go 2-3 more races where it'll be a good thing, but it just goes to show you that, a lot of times, Dirk, we were just talking about this off the air. Sanctioning bodies are in a tough spot because you can't please everybody.
Nope.
And especially as divided of a country as we are right now, everyone's got their opinion and everyone's right, and there's just nothing you could do about it. But back to the Daytona 500, I thought it was a good race. I thought it was a little ironic that the 3 pushed his way to the win with the history that the driver has in that 3 car, being the Intimidator, has been known to rattle some cages, as he said. And I didn't mean to wreck him. I just wanted to rattle his cage.
Well, I think that was more of the 10 car trying to do some blocking than it was the 3 trying to shove his way through.
Listen, I'm not blaming Austin Dillon at all. I'm not blaming Eric Almirola, Chase Elliott, any of those guys. Listen, that's last lap coming out of turn 4, coming to the white checkered flag for your ticket to the postseason, bonus payoff race, and probably the most prestigious win in the NASCAR Cup Series that there is.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Single race wise, it is the biggest win. Now, Homestead, you could win that race, and as a result, win the championship. The championship's probably bigger than the Daytona 500, but the single race Daytona 500 is the biggest win.
But if you win Homestead, you may not be the champion.
Yeah.
You know, there's 40 cars in there, and only 4 of them can win and are going to be the champions. So, but the Daytona 500 is a Super Bowl every year.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of guys that did a lot of racing and never won that Daytona 500, you know. So it's the biggest win by far. And for Austin Dillon to get a win at the start of the year, now he's locked into the chase already. And that's only his second win. Chevrolet obviously loved it with the new Camaro body style. That was, you know, their first time out with that. So that car goes and sits in a museum, and that's always pretty cool. Dan, you need to get down there to Daytona and go to that museum sometime.
Well, okay. If you insist, I'll schedule it right away. What a great turnout at the Daytona 500 party,
fantastic.
though. Great crowd, a lot of excitement, a lot of fun. My girlfriend was walking back in on those last couple of laps. She'd gone and taken care of some stuff at work. She was coming back in. She said as soon as she got out of her car at the Quaker Steak parking lot, she could hear us all hooping and hollering in that brickyard and screaming and cheering on. A bunch of us are cheering on Eric Almirola because we like that kind of Cinderella story where he struggled most of his career. He was hurt some of last season. He left Richard Petty, went to Stuart Haas, and he was a corner away from winning that baby. And it was a great race, great turnout at the Daytona 500 party. Mark your calendars, November 18th. We'll do it again for the Homestead viewing party. We'll also do it for the
truck race.
Yeah, the Mud Summer Classic or the Eldora truck race.
Be in July, and usually on a Wednesday night, but we go out and hang out and have a good time, and Chris puts it on the big screen for us, and you know, usually has some type of a food or drink special, because that's also, I believe, a bike night or classic car night. One of the two.
Wednesday nights, you can walk outside, get some beers, which I heard a little rumor that the beer prices may be going down. I want to say that again. Beer prices may be going down.
Well, maybe I should start drinking again.
It might be cheaper. I do actually think that a can of beer at Wednesday night bike nights will be cheaper than a bottle of Fiji water at the grocery store. I'm not. That's serious. That's not a joke. That's seriousness.
It's not going to be cheaper than a glass of tap water, though.
It might be healthier, though. I mean, if we live in Flint, Michigan, I'd go with the beer rather than the tap water.
I'd be definitely drinking bottled water, that's for sure.
All right, so coming up for today's show, turn number 2, Jack Dover will join us to talk about his plans for 2018. In turn 3, we had planned on Tad Pospischel, but he is knee-deep in tax season, so he's not going to be able to join us for a couple of weeks. Instead, we're going to sit down with David Starr, who landed himself a brand new ride for 2018. We'll talk to David about that ride and so much more coming up in turn number 3. And then turn number 4, we will preview today's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. I want to continue to go through top 10. Dirk, my system's not loading. If you could go through the top 10 finishers at Daytona, though, maybe go through who won stage 1 and 2, and then top 10 in the standings.
Shows 41. So that'd be Kurt Busch.
Yep, that's right. Kurt Busch won stage number 1, and then later wrecked out, right?
Yeah, he wrecked out right there. About 3 laps to go, I think. He was in the one that got Brendan Gaughan and Jeffrey Earnhardt, and Bain got beat up in that one. Or not Bain, but Blaney. Blaney did win the second stage with 21 car in second place, which would be Paul Menard this year.
Yeah, good for Paul Menard. He was really up there battling, too.
Well, another Ford. That's what, we talked before the race. I said the Fords have the thing going with the restrictor plates.
Definitely got the horsepower at the restrictor plates.
And Almirola was in a Ford, and had the lead there towards the end. So the Fords were the right car for the race, but it just didn't win. So
Kurt Busch wins stage 1. Ryan Blaney wins stage number 2, so they both get bonus playoff points for the postseason.
1 point for each
for the playoff season.
10 driver points. So.
And then how'd the top 10 roll out for the end of the race?
10th place, you had, surprisingly, A.J. Allmendinger. 9th place, you had Michael McDowell. Ryan Newman finished in 8th place, who ran in the top 5 for a long time the other day. You had Paul Menard finish 6th. Another surprise, Chris Buescher in the 5th spot. So a nice top 5 for him. Joey Logano came back after early race troubles to finish 4th. Denny Hamlin led some early and then had some pit road issues, but came back to salvage a 3rd place finish. Bubba Wallace in his first start in a full season runs in that 2nd spot. And then Austin Dillon with the 3-car gets the win. Kind of weird that, it's only the 2nd win for that 3-car at Daytona, but it was 20 years ago in 98 when the other driver driving the 3
That was
won.
a big win.
Yeah. So
and do you think Sunday's win at Daytona was a big win for that 3-car?
I think it was a big win for that team.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for the 3-car. Like I said before, it was big for Chevy because it was the first thing with the Camaro out, but a good win for Richard Childress. that guy's got a big investment in the sport.
Yeah.
And
what a struggle they've had over the last, what do you say, 5-6 years? Really, it started about a year or two before Kevin Harvick left. And then since then, it's been pretty dry for as far as top fives and wins come for Richard Childress Racing.
Newman got a win a year ago at Phoenix, and Austin Dillon got one at Charlotte, which if you're going to not win at Daytona, I guess Charlotte's probably the next place you're going to want to win because that's, a big track with NASCAR. But obviously, you put that Daytona win on your resume, and they can't take it away from you. And nobody else, there's not that many of them out there. So he joins an elite group.
Right.
Surprisingly enough, I've said it before, I didn't think he was ready to come up to the Cup level when he did. But obviously when it's family deal and stuff like that, everything changes a little bit. His brother, Ty, ran into some trouble and got into that big demolition derby right at the end of the first stage. He got caught up by the wall and no place to go. Our boy Brendan got caught up in it later. And we still got to try and get him on the phone. And believe me, folks, we've been trying.
What a good run for Brendan Gaughan and also Jeffrey Earnhardt. Coming down, you mentioned that with about 3 to go, that just before, that last caution of the race, it was really looking like they were going to be in there for a top 10 finish. And it didn't take a really good lip reader to understand that Brendan Gaughan was a little upset.
Yeah, but from what you could see, the video they had of when he got in a crash, there really wasn't anything for him to be upset about. He was wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Now, if something before that happened that got him into that, maybe somebody shoved him into it or something like that, which might have happened. But the other guy that was up there at that particular time that was like, what is he doing up there, was Matt DiBenedetto.
That's who I told Sarah to take. That's who I told my, and she goes, who is this Matt I said, don't even bother. Just take him. He's a simple pick and take him. And I was looking like Einstein at that point. And then all of a sudden it unfolded out. And she comes walking in. She goes, how's my guy doing? I said, he just got collected.
He went from 3rd to 30th.
Yeah.
About 20 feet.
Sorry.
But again, was having a great run.
Yeah.
And he come up with a couple good runs over the last couple of years every here and then. Chris Buescher won a race last year,
Yeah. And that's my point for the fantasy fans, that I don't like to use anybody that I think is going to make the playoffs at super speedways. Now, I went against my own better judgment, and I went with Brad Keselowski because he's a Ford and because he seems to have a little bit of a knack at the super speedways. But there was one person that used a Jimmy Johnson. Well, for our contest, they've only got 2 Jimmy Johnson picks left, and they walked away with 1 point. Matt DiBenedetto has more points, gained my girlfriend more points than somebody that took Jimmy Johnson. So for the 4 super speedway races of the year, it's my preference to pick somebody that I'm not going to pick normally.
Well, me and my brother debated, and he ended up taking Brendan Gaughan, who I was going to take, and then I ended up going with Stenhouse because I wanted the Ford. And Brendan finished 1 spot in front of Stenhouse, 28th and 29th, but Stenhouse, I think, ran 4th in the first stage.
Yeah.
So he ended up with a handful more points, but, still 29th place points is like 11 points or something like that. I think he ended up with 16 or 17 with the bonus points. So
good race overall. And again, can't say it enough. Thank you to Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch, for letting us come out.
Thank you to everybody that came out.
Yeah.
We had a lot of new faces.
Yep.
I filled up 7 pools. Last year at both times we did 4 pools for the Daytona. We did 4 pools for Homestead, but we filled up 7 pools, and everybody that won the pool was there at the end of the race. I got everybody paid off, and it didn't cost me a dime. Well, it cost me $40 for all the pools I was in, but all the money came out right, and everybody got paid, and we had some happy people that didn't realize they'd won.
That was a lot of fun.
Nobody fell off a bar stool.
That was good. That was good to finally not have that year.
But no, we gave away a lot of prizes with the trivia we were doing, and everybody seemed happy. Everybody seemed to have a good time.
We'll do it again in When is that? July?
Yeah, middle of July.
For the Eldora truck race, and then we'll do it again for the Homestead viewing party. And I think that, we had a couple of people that messaged us about the Chili Bowl party. We need to do that again this year. We might do one for the Dirt Late Model Nationals down in St. Louis. We'll see if we're up here for that, if we go down to watch that race. So a lot of fun things going on. Make sure to follow the Facebook page, and we'll keep you updated with all that. All right, before we wrap up turn number 1, we got to continue our year of giveaways.
Give it away now.
Thanks to our friends Brian and Shala. They have helped us out with getting a lot of autographed hero cards. They were able to get us an autographed Johnny Sauter hero card. So if you want to win an autographed Johnny Sauter hero card, call up at 402-573-0590 and answer this simple question. What year did Johnny Sauter win the Camping World Truck Series Championship? What year did Johnny Sauter win the Camping World Truck Series Championship? 402-573-0590. Jack Dover just around the corner in turn 2. David Starr on deck in turn 3, and then we'll preview Atlanta in turn number 4. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
This week's Young Gun of the front stretch is 23-year-old Tanner Dowdy, who grew up watching his dad, Troy Dowdy, turn laps all over the Midwest. When Tanner was 15, he finally got his shot behind the wheel of a sport compact at Eagle Raceway and McCool Junction. It wasn't long before he moved into the hobby stock class, racing weekly against his father at McCool and Eagle. Last season, Tanner earned a top 20 points finish at Eagle Raceway, and he's been working hard all off-season to make sure he improves that to a top 10 points finish. Someday he hopes to qualify for the IMCA Super Nationals feature, and with a little luck on his side, he hopes to be the one standing in victory lane. This season, Tanner plans on racing Eagle Raceway full-time while hitting other tracks when his schedule allows. Keep your eye out for this week's Young Gun, Tanner Dowdy, behind the wheel of the 7T Dowdy Home Repair Hobby Stock at a dirt track near you. Thanks to Craig Kelly of Sarah Kelly and Sewell Personal Injury Attorneys for their support of this week's Young Gun on the front stretch.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 2. It's time to sit down with a local driver that we always enjoy talking to every season, 2 or 3 times in the year, and that is Jack Dover, driver of the number 53 SSS Motorsports in the Nebraska 360 series and throughout the Midwest. Is that SSS still accurate?
Yep, and certified transmission, link foot overhead doors. We got a new sponsor we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, exciting news for you guys.
Yeah, we got a lot of exciting news we're going to talk about.
Good, but you're not going to give it all to us.
No, we'll give you half of it. We got some more stuff in the works, so we can't release it all.
Is this your way of getting back on the show in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it'll work, won't it? I should have it released in 2 weeks.
Okay. I just want to know the dyno numbers from the 410. That's all I want to hear about.
There's no news on a 410 yet.
That you'll tell us.
Yeah.
Well, I can hold out hope that there's a Knoxville National 410 starting position for you somewhere.
Well, I think there's a motor sitting somewhere that we might be able to run.
All right, let's talk about. We're going to do you a favor. We've talked about 17. We're done with that.
I'm glad 2018. It's done.
That's right. It's now 2018. Your crew has been hard at work, right?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, we've been pretty slow this winter. We've all been busy working, and that's a good thing. that works busy. So actually got everything ordered. Everything should be here in the next 2 weeks, and we'll be thrashing after that.
Let's start with the bottom, and I don't want to say the bottom, but let's start with the lowest engine available. Race Saver 305. You're going to be racing the 84 again.
Yeah, we'll be racing Chris Roseland's 84 again.
Okay.
I think we're scheduled to run it probably 6 or 7 times throughout the year, and he got some mini sprints, so I think he's stepping away from the big sprint car for this year, and it's just going to be an open seat for me whenever I got time.
Oh, cool. Anybody else plan on racing that car when it's available, or is it just going to be you?
It's just Jack Dover's seat is in there, so I think that's all staying in there, I hope.
Does he feel that at your shop? Does it live at your shop, or does he have his own that he sets it up and then brings it to track?
It stays at his place 80% of the time. Okay. I mean, sometimes it'll be out at the shop. If we are racing one weekend and got a race, say Wednesday, it'll come to our shop.
Didn't I hear there's like a 10,000 to win Race Saver race down in Missouri this year?
Somebody else mentioned that. I think Chris Roseland mentioned that.
Yeah.
And one of my crew guys did the research, and he couldn't find anything on it.
I don't think it's anything official yet, but they're working on the details, trying to get that all finalized for a 10,000 to win feature race.
Wasn't it at Cameron, if I remember right?
That sounds right.
And then I know there's a big race at Belleville. Since they took the Nationals away, it's going to be like 305 Nationals.
Yeah, yep. Probably hit those races?
We won't make the Belleville one because that's the same weekend as 360 Nationals.
Okay. And the 360 is probably going to be your primary obligation again this year.
I mean, not sound cocky or anything, but I think our chances at 305 Belleville Nationals are better, but competition ain't as good. And I want to go where the competition is. And that's always been my goal, is win over at Knoxville. So it'd definitely be a good goal to win the 360 Nationals.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about that 360. Toured with the Nebraska 360s again?
We should be able to make about 85 to 90% of them.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to make 100% of them. I think there's 3 of them we're missing. But if the other tracks don't work out or something goes wrong, then we're definitely going to run with the Nebraska 360s.
And maybe those 3 will rain out, and then you'll make 100%.
There you go.
Will that change if going into missing that first race if you're the points leader?
I think it would play an effect. And the series is actually doing something cool this year. Like if you're with Nebraska 360s, they're gonna pay out like a points fund if you make so many shows. But say they got a race on Friday the 29th, and you go race down in Missouri on the 29th, the same night as theirs, then you're out of those points. Yeah, and you don't get paid.
They're basically paying a perfect attendance.
Right. Yep.
Bonus.
Yep.
Good deal for that. Big races for the 360s. You're going to go to the Knoxville Nationals.
Yep. When it comes to big races, we'll be in the 81 car, Chris Bauer's car. I'm not running my car at any big races besides the Knoxville Nationals.
How come?
He came to me and asked me if I'd race his car at the big money races, and I said sure. And he actually bought one of my cars from last year and has that new Speedway motor. So I think we got a good combination and good power, and I know how that car reacts. So come big money races, I think we'll be a contender.
So that's going to be the ACS?
ASCS.
Excuse me. Yeah.
There's also a $10,000 race at Park Jeff, like on April 24th. We're going to go to. There's some big money races that we're going to go to, like $10,000 to $15,000 races.
Yeah, those are good. That's a good pay for a 360.
Yeah, yeah, and it's fun for me because all I got to do is show up and drive and kind of give my input on what the car's doing throughout the night. But other than that, it's real easy weekend, and I get some money out of the deal.
Any wingless shows in the plans?
No. I wish. If it was my choice, I'd say let's go all year long.
So it looks like your first race is going to be March 30th at 81 Speedway?
Yep, that's one of those big money races. We'll be in the 81 car there. And then the following weekend we'll be at I-80, and that'll be my first night out in my car.
Man, how many races you got on your schedule this year?
65. We actually just released the schedule yesterday.
Yeah, I see that. I'm finally looking up and kind of picking out some of the races, but 65, that's always been, you're wanting to get up into that area more often, right?
Yeah, I mean, we always have 65 to 70 scheduled, and I think last year we ended up running 47, and the years previous to that we're 50 to 60 we ran. So we try to get it up there, and that way if we get rained out, we still get quite a bit of shows.
Yeah, you can pretty much figure 10 to 15% is going to rain. So you're going to lose 6-10 shows on rain.
He did that math in his head.
Pretty good math.
I don't understand how he does that.
I've done it twice.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I get lucky sometimes.
So my main goal is probably to get 50 shows in. Okay. That'd be a good year.
Then we have the 410. So we've been kind of hounding on you a little bit for the last couple of years. We want you to get full time in that 410, but unfortunately, as much as we want, we're not doing anything to help it. So we're going to keep wishing.
We We can keep talking about it. Maybe somebody will hear us and throw us some money.
You kind of talked about, it would be great if we had a 410 available for the Knoxville Nationals. Any other 410 races you're eyeing?
Honestly, I'm not. The only one that catches my attention is 410 Nationals. Is just
no local Woos show this year.
Yeah, I don't think there is any 410 shows in Nebraska.
Is that surprising to you? I mean, that's been the first time in several years.
I was going to say, it's been a long time since 410s haven't been in Nebraska. So, yeah, it is surprising. If there was a 410 show at, say, McCool or Eagle or I-80 even, like there has been in the last couple years, I'd probably think about doing it.
Yeah.
But since there isn't anything, 410 Nationals is the only one I've really looked at doing.
Big race you've got circled on the schedule. I think you kind of mentioned it a couple times. It's probably the race you're eyeing the most to be the Knoxville Nationals.
Yeah, 360 Nationals. It's always been my dream to win that. And 2 years ago, we had a really good run. We came from the B main and came from the back of the A up to 7th. So that was our best finish. And I know we can win it. Just got to have some luck.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you got a big new sponsor on board coming on for 2018.
Yeah, really excited to announce it. We came to terms, and OFC Schmidt down in Plattsmouth, the tanker company, they're going to come on board this year. So,
fantastic!
Yeah, really, really happy to have them on board.
You could, I could tell you're in a different mood than you've been the last couple of times you've been in here. You're pretty excited about this.
Yeah, just not only because they came on board, but a lot of my other sponsors are stepping up this year. So it should be pretty stress free this year.
Don't say that.
I thought that last year, and then
I'm going to knock on wood for you.
Last year wasn't a very good year for me.
I think it's been the last 4 or 5 years you've really taken over the finance for your racing operation, which can really add another 150 pounds of stress to your everyday operation.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
And I can see that's relieved a lot on you right now. I mean,
it's getting to the point where I got good partners with me, and they're taking a lot of stress off me as far as fundings and how they're helping me. So it does take a lot of stress off me.
Now, does this mean you're finally going to be able to give your pit crew a pay raise?
Not yet.
When they start pulling their weight, then you'll give them a pay raise?
Yeah. They can get 2 things off the dollar menu.
I was going to say, maybe a couple pops here and there.
Alex is in the studio. He doesn't want to talk to us, but we're going to try to get a little bit out of him. How long have you been with Dover Racing?
He's a little radio shy.
I believe since 2013. Met him at the World of Wheels car show.
I did the math on that. That's 5 years.
Well,
that was me.
2000.
Did you use a calculator on that computer?
No, I did it on my head. I
didn't even know Alex, and just this random kid come up to me at the World of Wheels and said something, a nice pickup, or is that your truck or something, and then been friends ever since.
Is that how Lauren got you to date her too? She had a nice pickup line like that?
Yeah, that's all my fault.
Well, the story...
your fault?
The story behind Lauren is... Mr. Alex here was talking to her, and I kind of stole her from him.
That's right. I remember you telling me that story. I didn't realize that was Alex.
First time she was ever at the shop was the last time with me.
Yeah. Surprised he's sitting here with me right now.
Yeah. Alex, talk to people a little bit about what you do for the team. I mean, everything is the easy way to say, but I mean, set up, weekly maintenance, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, usually.
Tell them what you go through, because really nobody out there knows what you go through.
Including your car owner.
Usually I would usually unload it when we get back to the shop on after racing and wash it and get the trailer all ready for the next night. Then at the races I do tire pressures. This year I've been getting into cutting tires and doing some wax on wax off on the car.
That's his main forte on Sundays. He gets out there and takes body panels off and gets them all scrubbed up and cleans it up.
Sundays. No one's at the shop on Sundays.
Sometimes Tuesdays.
Usually it's the night before the race.
So you'll see Alex in the pits with the 53, 81, and 84. Any other car numbers you're running this year?
Honestly, if we're going to be honest, last year we were talking about quitting.
Yeah.
You heard that rumor.
We talked about it a little bit, yeah.
Wasn't no rumor. We talked to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not quitting. And just for some crazy idea this winter, I thought about changing my number up. But everybody knows me as a 53, so we're sticking with the 53.
Oh, but you get to sell more merchandise if you change your number. Haven't you figured that out yet? I'd have a new number every year.
I was thinking like 89 or something.
You know, why 89?
I don't know.
Okay.
Why have every car in the 80s?
You're going to get real confused during draw.
81, 84, 89.
There is something. I mean, you could rebrand yourself. I mean, you've got a couple. Hopefully, about another 5 or 10 years left in you, maybe longer, depending on how long you want to deal with this.
Yeah.
But is that the next big news?
What?
The wedding proposal?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Racing to go bye-bye.
It wouldn't go bye-bye.
I don't think she could. She likes that racing, right?
Oh yeah,
she likes dirt.
Yeah, she's kind of upset because I told her I wasn't going to race this year, and she took on the management job at her job, so she won't be at the races very often this year. So she's kind of upset about that.
So she doesn't get to drive the push vehicle?
Nope. So I'm going to have to update her so she can update the website and all that fun stuff.
So what else?
Oh, new color schemes.
Are you getting rid of the black and yellow?
It's same colors, but
Okay.
it's not as much yellow.
Okay.
It's main colors are black and gray with some yellow lettering and stuff. It looks really good.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Where'd you you've gotten it back, or have you just seen designs
Yeah,
so
it's
far?
on my phone.
You've seen designs so far. Okay.
Yeah, would you like to see them?
Sure.
I'll show
Let's
him
see.
when we get off this
All right.
interview here.
I'm just gonna see. I mean, it's because right now we're talking to you on Thursday, February 22nd. So there's about a little over a month to go till the season. So I imagine the car will get to the letterer about a week to go before the season starts.
Wow.
See, I can show you our new logo.
Oh, yeah. Who designed that?
I don't know. Who designed it?
SMS Marketing. She does the marketing for Quaker Steak.
Looks good.
One of our sponsors, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
Where's the new headsets?
yeah.
This is his hand-me-down.
That is. Those are my headphones from when I was in college.
Wow.
Yeah,
That was like 30 years
Vietnam.
ago.
When they make good ones.
What were we talking?
They last.
Yeah, you were talking it'll get done the week before, and
Yeah.
you're exactly right. I
Okay.
just went down to Speedway Graphics and talked to John down there. He's the one that designs everything for me, and we got in the schedule book for March 29th to get 2 cars lettered. We're getting the
Your first race is March 30th, Jack.
Probably 30.
not my car though.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you're right. A week before I race the car that's getting lettered.
So then your first time in the figured 53 will be at I-80.
Yeah,
For the spring meltdown.
I think it's what, April 6th and 7th.
Yeah, I think that's right. 6th or 7th or 7th or 8th. I can't remember the exact
Car will be
dates.
getting finished April 5th.
Yeah.
No,
I
hopefully.
would be surprised if it's that soon. I mean, this guy's notorious for doing things late.
No, we should have everything in the next 2 weeks. So when you got everything there, it makes the job a lot easier
Yeah.
and stress-free. So everything gets lettered March 28th and 29th. We got 2 cars getting lettered. We got the push vehicle getting re-lettered. That's been 3 or 4 years since
Yeah.
that's been done, so that's exciting. And then all
And
of our
expensive.
wings. Yeah.
And you've got a lot of those wings. Weren't you selling some wings in the off season?
Yeah, nobody bought them.
Oh.
But I worked out a deal with a kid that builds wings. He's going to take all my used parts and trade me out for brand new wings. So
Oh wow.
yeah, works out.
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
All right.
He's happy. I'm happy.
Well, I'm glad you came in. I'm glad you seem to be energized for the season. Last season, at the beginning of the year, you were kind of.
Well, he was talking about quitting next year.
Yeah. You know, it's a whole
That's
different
gone.
Dover. Honestly, I think this could be a big year for you because you've got that swagger back. You've got the excitement back.
I think it'll be a good year.
Is Helmet Head going to put all these race car numbers on one helmet, or are you going to have a whole bag of helmets to carry?
No,
with
I'm
you?
going to have 2 helmets, 2 new suits, pretty much 2 of everything. So
Wow.
that'll be a lot of stress off
2
me.
for everything and first for everything.
Yeah.
So, like I said, SSS Motorsports coming back on board this year.
Yeah.
Is that
Yep.
that's one of the plans? Certified transmission.
Carpetland, pretty much everybody. And then we got, like I said, OFC Schmidt down in Plattsmouth. They're coming on board. So it's looking pretty good.
All right. We'll see you. First time they're going to see you at the racetrack is going to be in the 81 car for 81 Speedway.
81 car at 81 Speedway, yeah.
And that's at Park City?
No,
Park
it's just
Park
Kansas.
City,
Kansas.
yep.
All right, that's March 30th
That's,
and 31st. And then the first time out in the 360 for the 53 machine will be at I-80. And by the way, that is April 6th and 7th.
Yeah, if we go down to Park City and win that race, that'll be a good start to the year because
Absolutely.
that's $15,000 to win.
Wow.
Just don't do a Cody Ledger from last year down there.
Yeah.
That
You
was
mean
not
a-
a good start to a season.
You mean a Cody Balboa? Is that what you're talking about?
Actually, I don't think it happened at the beginning because we got rained out.
I thought it was. I thought.
Yeah,
he
so
took a
we got
tumble
drunk in
down
the
there.
hallway at the hotel.
Wasn't it 81 Speedway right at the
Wait a
beginning of the
minute.
year where he
Wait
got
a minute.
upside down?
I think
Wait
it
a
was in the
minute.
middle of the year.
Why did you get drunk in a hallway?
It was sometime last year though.
I thought it was right at the beginning of the year.
He got. Are
He
you talking
tumbled
about
at
Ledger?
81. Yeah.
At 81, because he tumbled at I-80 pretty hard during the.
I know which time he's talking about because
Okay.
I remember the someone that got into him.
Yeah, I think it was right at the beginning of the year. It was like the first or second night out.
Might have been second night because I know that first weekend got rained out because
Yeah.
I finally called on the pit passes that I paid for. It was like $300. I called on them like a month and a half ago to try to get my money back. I got my money.
Oh, that's good.
So
Now, hold on. Somebody snuck a comment in there. Why did you get drunk in a hotel hallway and not in the hotel room?
Because it was
there
us, Ledgers.
There was a bunch of us.
Was the D-Highs involved?
No, he wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
No, it was just Tony Bruce was there.
Okay.
Uh,
But it was easier just to get drunk in the hallway.
yeah.
You didn't get any trouble from the hotel management?
No.
No, they couldn't understand us.
We're going to leave it at that before we get in any trouble for any kind of comments. All right, Jack. Best of luck this season. We'll talk to you soon, and try to bring
2
that
weeks.
girl in next time.
2 weeks.
Okay, we'll get you back on in 2 weeks.
That way we can release the rest of the stuff I got to release.
Deal.
Hopefully
We'll
I'll
see.
have it all finished up
You're
and
gonna-
finalized.
You going to bring
Probably
Alex back in, or are you going to bring the lovely lady
No,
back
he'll
in?
be building race cars, hopefully.
All right, then. Jack Dover in the 53. You'll see him March 30th and 31st in the 81 machine, and then here locally he'll be at I-80 Speedway for the season opener April 5th and 6th and 7th for the 53 machine. Good luck this year, bud.
And you'll hear him again right here in 2 weeks.
Hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
enjoy coming
Alex,
in.
that was
Thanks.
easy, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Even though we're going to get in trouble now because of that comment. We'll be back in turn 4. We'll be back in turn 3 with David Starr here on the front stretch.
In a world where speed reigns supreme, where discipline and danger collide, unpredictability is the one thing you can count on.
Jimmy Johnson, a night of ups and downs, and it's down again.
On May 12th, just one hero will triumph. No one knows which hero it will be.
He's going to do it again tonight here at Kansas Speedway.
Critics are calling it an unscripted masterpiece. If you see only one epic event this spring, make it this one. Kansas Speedway is the only place you can experience this kind of heart-pounding suspense. Witness a battle where drama lurks at every turn.
Up and into the outside wall is Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Coming soon to a track near you. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Night Race. Only at Kansas Speedway May 12th. Tickets at kansasspeedway.com. Rated U for unexpected.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, brought to you by Kansas Speedway, home of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Kansas 400. The race weekend, May 11th, that's a Friday night. Camping World Truck Series will be there. And then on Saturday night, the Cup Series goes under the lights for the second time of the season for the Kansas 400. And that again on May 12th. You can get your tickets in advance, 866-460-RACE, 866-460-RACE, or go to kansasspeedway.com. Don't forget, kids 12 and under will get into that Friday night Camping World Truck Series race for just that's for free. And then on Saturday for the Cup Series race, there is substantial discounts available since the 2017 season. NASCAR offering big price breaks for kids 12 and under to get into those races as we trying to get the youth back involved in the sport. So again, kansasspeedway.com or 866-460-RACE for your single race tickets or race weekend packages. That's Friday, May 11th for the Camping World Truck Series, and then Saturday, May 12th for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Kansas 400. Joining us on the phone now is probably one of our favorite interviews because he always gives us great information and he is always available when we need him. That is the driver, David Starr, who has landed a deal with Jimmy Means Racing in the Xfinity Series for the 2018 season to drive the number 52 Chevrolet Camaro. David, congratulations on the ride.
Well, man, thank you. First of all, hey, man, I appreciate what you guys do for all the race fans out there, man. Front stretch, y'all show. I mean, bringing up and close personal with what goes on in our sport to all the fans. Thank you for what you guys do. But my 20th season, and man, I'm so excited. You know, just excited. First time I ran my first NASCAR race. I just love that competition, and to be able to race in 2018 for Jimmy Means in the number 52 NASCAR Xfinity Series is just really cool. And it's interesting how it works out. We ran 3 or 4 Cup races towards the end of the year and thought I was going to race full time in the Cup Series, and unfortunately, about 2.5 weeks ago, that all fell apart. And it's just nothing surprises me anymore because I've been doing this such a long time. I've pretty much been through all of it. So when that happened, and I needed to race something, I got to looking on what was available, and Jimmy Means had 2-car available, and man, he's just I've been watching him ever since I was a kid. Him racing in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, and he's a friend of mine, and he's a hard worker, and his cars look good, and they run good, and he's just a hardcore racer. It just worked out. I called him up, said, hey, told him the situation, and told him what kind of sponsor money I had, and he said, well, hey, let's go do it. You know what I mean? So here we are. About 2 weeks later. I mean, this just all came about. I'm actually over here in Forest City, North Carolina, at his shop, working on a Daytona car, working on the Atlanta car, getting my seats all mounted and stuff like that. But man, I still pinch myself today, even though it's been 20 years, because it's a blessing. It's a dream come true, to be able to do something you love so much and something I've always wanted to do. It's just, I love it, man. I'm like a kid.
Well, we talked a lot in the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years about the youth movement in this sport and how a lot of veterans are being forced out. And it's really refreshing that a veteran like you is able to stay out there on the track and be kind of that guiding light for some of these young kids.
Well, I mean, I love the youth movement. The sport evolves, and and sport's going through a little bit of changes the last couple of years for different reasons or another. But there's a big youth movement, and I think it's wonderful. It's awesome. I love that because the passion and the heart and the dedication it takes to compete at this level. It's cool to see young kids have it still out there, and all the kids that race IMC late models or modifieds or whatever. It's cool to know that desire and that passion, that dream still lives on out there in the local racetracks across the United States. So I think it's awesome, man. I love what's going on. That being said, I'm no spring chicken anymore. I feel like I'm 23. I act like 23, and physically I feel like I'm 23, as strong as I've ever been. And man, I got more energy now than I was when I was 23. But anyway, I love the youth movement, but I'm sure am glad that I'm still able to compete and to race at the level we race at, and there's room for guys like myself still. You know what I mean? So pretty neat stuff.
Well, they're doing a good job with your Facebook page, because that's where I first saw the news here this week, and got a hold of Jessica to make sure she was still with you and get setting up to talk to you. So I thought it was a great deal, and got a lot of well-wishers on there.
Well, it's one thing cool about our sport. It's just the fans. Without fans, you don't have a sport. You know what I mean? So over the 20 years that I've been involved in NASCAR racing, you meet some great people across the country, and you do autograph sessions, and you meet people in restaurants and wherever, and hey, if they're NASCAR fans, they're friends of mine. You know what I mean? Because I'm a race car guy. You know what I mean? If I'm not racing in a NASCAR race, I'm sitting up in stands at a dirt track, or I'm watching the World of Outlaws, or I'm watching IndyCar racing. I love to race. I love motorsports, and the fans that come to our race and watch it on TV when they want to talk racing, and I've been fortunate over the years that I got some fans that follow me, so it's really cool, and one thing about it, without the fans, we wouldn't have any kind of racing. The fans, they buy the products, they support the manufacturers, and without that, we don't have a sport. So it's all about the race fans, and it's just, it's cool to think that you have one or two out there that cheer for you.
As if it's not cool enough what you get to do on Saturday afternoons in the Xfinity Series. I noticed on your Facebook page a couple of weeks ago, you got to go and race some go-karts against Cowboy quarterback Dak Prescott.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. A good friend of mine, Tommy V, he's good friends with Dak, and the Cowboys over the years. I'm a Houston Texan fan first because I'm from Houston, Texas, but living in that Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Cowboys are, they're my second best team, and when Tommy called and said, hey, Dak wants to go race some go-karts, he's even interested in going out to your NASCAR school at Texas Motor Speedway. I said, man, that's pretty cool. And Tommy called up, Dak wants to go race go-karts first. So man, we met up at the local go-kart track, and man, we had a ball. First couple of races I won. I think Tommy was second, and the last race of the night, they gave us a big 15-lap feature, and Dak led all the laps, and when they dropped the white flag, I wanted to just kind of get side by side with him, and just race with him side by side. But unfortunately, when I got beside him, he cut down in the corner. I ended up spinning him out. So after I spun him out, I spun myself out, and then Dak had a bunch of his buddies there. There was about 12 of us racing, and so when I spun Dak out, and then I spun myself out, he was able to recover. Here come my buddy Tommy. Tommy's going to win the race. I barely caught him in the right rear, spun him out, and Dak won the race. And you would have thought Dak won the Super Bowl.
Hang on, let me take a quick note. If you ever race a go-kart with David Starr, watch your quarter panel.
That's it. No doubt about it.
Hey, how big was that go-kart track you were on down there?
Oh, man, it was cool, man. It's a go-kart track over there in Frisco, Texas, an indoor deal, It's actually just electric go-karts, and but, man, they get going pretty good. It was a lot of fun.
I was at an indoor race about 2 months ago down in St. Louis in the Big Dome, and that was a go-kart track, but they were running late models on it.
Dude, that's awesome. Hey, man, if they're racing something, I'm there watching or want to participate. It don't matter. You know how us racers are. We just want to race something. It don't matter. As long as we got 4 tires and shock springs, it's all good.
What are you doing? Any other racing, like you mentioned, outside of the Xfinity Series? Your 32, 33 race deal coming up with Jimmy Means?
Well, yeah, we're going to race full time in the Xfinity Series, and then I, looks like probably going to race 6 or 7 Cup races with Carl Long, number 66 car. So the first one being the April race at Texas Motor Speedway would be our first Cup race. So, that's kind of exciting, and it is exciting, and I'm not kind of exciting. It's really cool. And so, man, I just, whether you're racing in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity, or the Cup Series, I love to compete. And, it don't matter if I'm at a local dirt track, somebody asks me to get in their bomber car or street stock, shoot, I jump in there and get after it. It's a lot of fun, man. You guys are racers yourself. You know how it is, But I'm just glad I'm going to go to Daytona here next week, compete, try to win at Daytona, man. That's just dreams, man. That's good stuff, So pretty awesome.
You had a big run there last July to back up.
Man, that was a great story because how the sport is. It's all driven from sponsorship dollars and this and that. Last year, unfortunately, we didn't have myself. I didn't bring a lot of money to the team I was racing for, and there was a kid that had quite a bit of money for the Daytona race, and so man, it was like I was going to sit out July race, which I've never really missed Daytona July race. Every race since I've been in the Xfinity or Truck Series, I've never missed Talladega or Daytona, and that was kind of it was kind of tough. You know what I mean? To know that they were on their way to the track, and and I wasn't going to go. You know what I mean? That was challenging. I can be honest with you. But I try to stay busy at my race shop back at Texas Motor Speedway, try not to think about it. And actually, I think it was Friday. I think the race was Saturday night or Saturday during the day. Heck, I don't remember the time of it all. But man, I'm out there. I'm at home doing my yard work, planting some flowers, and trimming my bushes, mowing the grass. And Bobby Dotter calls me and said, "Hey, can you get to Daytona?" I said, "Absolutely." Well, still,
nope, I can't.
I can't. Yeah, but the kid was supposed to drive the car. He come down with flu or some kind of cold or something, and wasn't physically able to drive the car. So anyway, man, I finished up mowing the grass. I never finished mowing my grass so quick, and man, I never packed so quick. And I was at the airport, and man, I tell you, I trying to remember there was a flight at 4:00 in the afternoon, and and I get to the airport, and the flight didn't leave till after midnight. They had mechanical problems with the lane. We landed in Atlanta, and I don't remember, it was 2-something in the morning, and man, I slept in the airport, and flew. I was supposed to be flying into Orlando, and then rent a car and drive over Daytona. Man, it was just, we're running out of time. I finally flew into Daytona. I think I got there at 10 o'clock, and qualifying was at 12 o'clock. And man, NASCAR did a nice job. They were able to let me work on the seat, and before qualifying and after qualifying, and it, and then the race got rained out that night, which I think might have been Friday Friday night or Saturday night and come back in the next day. I mean, just everything that happened, you know what I mean, how it all went down. I wasn't even supposed to be there. And to finish fifth in the race, it was pretty spectacular for us. You know what I mean? I almost felt like, you know, we had a shot at winning, but they had a big race wreck out there at the end, and we bent the splitter up on the right side of the car, and that pretty much took our chances out. But, man, I had Joey Logano wearing out my back bumper, and the guy in front of me, I was wearing his bumper out. As long as I kept somebody behind me pushing, we was in good shape. So when we finished fifth, man, I felt like the guy that won the race, they should have kind of moved his car over and victory lane and let pull mine up in there as well, because that was a win for us, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, man, that's just what makes it all worthwhile. You know, Jimmy Means, our team this year, the number 52 car. You know, we're not one of Joe Gibbs or Childress or Ganassi. You know, we're not at that level. You know, we race on a very underfunded budget. You know what I mean? But you get everything you can get out of the cars under the circumstances, and you know, and just dig and work hard and take care of the sponsors you got, and then you know, every once in a while it falls your way. You know what I mean? And that's what keeps you coming back. You know, that's racing.
Talk about some of the sponsors you got helping you guys up down the road. I know that you're bringing a package with you.
Man, you know, we're going to make an announcement on our Facebook next week talking about all our different sponsors. So if you could bear with me, not say anything quite yet. We're finishing up a couple of deals. But, man, I got a lot of great people that help me. I'm very lucky in that aspect of it, because it you know, there for, you know, 15 years, 14 years, I was a hired driver. They just paid me to race. You know, now, you know, you have to have sponsors behind you to be able to race at this level. And I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of different people that help me. So it's really a cool deal. But, yeah, I'm not going to mention anybody right now just because I'm working on some other deals and hopefully have all that announced next week on our Facebook page.
All right, well, we'll direct people over to the David Starr Racing Facebook page so they can make sure and pay attention to who's going to be sponsoring you during your 33-race excursion over at Jimmy Means Racing.
Well, I know you're in real good shape with the Whataburger people. I want you to open a franchise up here and maybe get some sponsorship stuff going on at Iowa Speedway.
Dirk, I agree with you, buddy. I definitely agree with you. And, you know, Jessica Rhodes, she does a great job. Obviously, y'all know Jessica well. You know, she helps me with all my contracts, help me take care of all our different partners to make sure when they come to the racetrack, they have a red carpet experience. So, you know, she's a big help to me. But, man, just excited that I'm going to be racing in NASCAR in the year 2018 and just looking forward to it, man. It's going to be cool. And looking forward to coming to Iowa Speedway. You know, it's one of my favorite tracks. It's a great short track. Well, we guys visit a lot. So, yeah, it's going to be an exciting year.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me saying, but that Jessica Rhodes sure does make David Starr Racing look good.
Hey, I wouldn't agree with you more than ever. You know what I mean? When I'm at the racetrack and she's right next to me, you know, it lifts me up some, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
you're the guy with Jessica.
Look who Jessica's with today.
Oh, heck.
A good run at Iowa last year, too, right? I think you guys had a good top 11th?
14th, I thought.
Yeah, 14th. I think it was 14. Yeah, it worked out good. We had a good car that day, you know. And Iowa, I love that Iowa track, man. It's just a great little short track, and it's got a lot of challenges to it because it's so bumpy, you know. And you got to be able to keep the tires working, you know, through the bumps, you know what I mean? And man, we hit it pretty good that day. And you know, for like I said, for the teams, that team we had last year and the team we have this year, you know, those top 15 finishes, you know, that's big for teams like Jimmy Means Racing, you know what I mean? Just because, you know, we don't have the big $1 million budgets, you know what I mean? So, like I said, you just at the end of the day, at the end of the race, gave it all you had, and everybody gave it 100%. That's what you got, you know what I mean? And you know, and you just dig hard and other people's misfortunes. Next thing you know, you hit a great setup, and you know it's possible. You know, our goals really, you know, those top 15. That's, you know, 15th through 20th every week. It's almost like a win for us.
David Starr of David Starr Racing joining the 52 in the Xfinity Series for Jimmy Means Racing, and you guys putting together a joint effort there to run the full season. Good luck throughout the rest of the season. We can't wait to see you at the track at Kansas and Iowa, bud.
Hey, man, good. Thanks for having me on the front stretch, and I'll talk to you guys later, okay? Thank y'all.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000. Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around the professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 4, and it's time to wrap this baby up. Turn 4 brought to you by the official watering hole of the front stretch, Quaker Steak and Lube in Council Bluffs. Make sure you get over to the Lube today for all the NASCAR action. Today's race at Atlanta Motor Speedway. This time last year, Brad Keselowski able to come home with the win. Kyle Larson came home second. Matt Kenseth, who is no longer Indy Cup Series, came home third. Casey Kane fourth. Chase Elliott fifth. Logano, Kurt Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and Jamie McMurray rounded out your top 10.
Harvick had won both the first 2 stages, and if I remember right, I don't remember if he just had a pit road issue or had a pit road speeding penalty that ended up costing him, and he ended up back in the pack and couldn't get back to the front.
But because of those top finishes, he ends up being one of the big points getters of the day. Actually ends up coming home with second most points. Brad Keselowski, who finished second in Stage 1 and 7th in Stage 2, ends up coming home with 53 points along with the win. So like we've talked about with those stages, if you have a good Stage 1 and Stage 2, but you struggle in the final part, those first 2 stages can really recoup your day.
Well, and this was also the beginning, as you mentioned, Kyle Larson ran second. This was when he started that string. He had 4 second-place finishes in a row, and 3 second-place finishes in a row because he had to win at California last year. So he was running up front with the point system.
And I don't believe we go to Atlanta again. This is a one-time, right?
That is correct. Used to be 2 races there, but now just 1.
So Atlanta Motor Speedway, the action on the big screens today at Quaker Steak and Lube. You can get on down there and have yourself a good old time. By the way, if you want to get involved in the Pick'ems contest presented by Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners, even though the season has started, you can still get involved in that contest. Now, I'll break it down to you like a couple of people that emailed me late last Sunday for the Daytona 500. There are a lot of people that are sitting back with 1 point, and they have 1 less pick in the season. So you are 1 point behind them, and you have all of your picks in the season. According to our rules, you can join up until, I believe, Las Vegas is the last race you can join. So that's next weekend's race. You can get involved today. Send us an email, frontstretchradio@gmail.com. Green flag waves at about 1:30 today, which means the picks are going to be locked at about 1 o'clock. So you've got about 4 hours to get your picks in today and get everything all set to go.
Yep, and obviously good luck to everybody. It's going to be the first test for the new Camaro on a 1.5 mile speedway, and I mean they won the race in Daytona, so I guess you can say they passed the super speedway test.
That's really, for the listeners who don't pay much attention to the off-season news, and I'm glad that you don't because it can get overwhelming at times. Chevy has come out with a new body style, the Camaro ZL1. And this whole body style, so the reason why this is a big deal is because they've now had a couple of years of understanding this current package to be able to tweak this new body. It still fits within the rules and regulations of the Cup Series cars, and it has been completely tested and approved by NASCAR through their wind tunnel and all their systems. But it's going to be there was a lot of conversation last year that Toyotas had an advantage. I tend to disagree with that, although I think that advantage was Martin Truex Jr. over the body style. We're going to really see it this year as we now have a second manufacturer that has, in consecutive years, has a new body style. If you consistently see Chevys up front, and you're going to see it at the 1.5 mile tracks where that aero is incredibly dependent, then there is a little bit of argument to that point.
Yeah, it's basically these cars are all the same from about the front tires back. They've got different decals and stuff on the back, and the rear end may be just a tad different, but the nose is your basic difference. And you heard the complaining last year. Probably the loudest complainer was Brad Keselowski, talking about how much drag the Toyota had, which turns into downforce. And so on your 1.5 mile tracks and your 1 mile tracks, that's where that really comes into play. It hurts them on your restrictor plate tracks and even your 2 mile tracks. It slows them down just a little bit, but it really kills them on the restrictor plates, and that's where you saw the Fords won all 4 restrictor plates last year. Well, this year, next year is supposed to be new noses for all 3 manufacturers. Okay, Chevy stepped up and brought their new nose in a year early. There might be a tweak for it next year, but they've got their new nose this year, which is supposed to be very comparable to Toyota. Ford didn't do anything. You saw Ford basically do a lot of dominating at Daytona. Again, in the restrictor plate race. Ford didn't end up winning, but if Eric Almirola would have played the cards right just a little bit the last lap, he probably would have won.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what that Camaro does with these Toyotas. And, you could see at the beginning here last year, like I said, Kevin Harvick won the first 2 stages in Atlanta. Toyota hadn't quite finished or figured out their new nose and what exactly it could do. So you had the Ford still win. You had a Chevy second, and then you had a Toyota run third. But after the second race of the year, you really started seeing Martin Truex kind of, I'm here and I'm going to stay in front, and guys, come get me.
To follow up on your point, Kevin Harvick was assessed a speeding entering the pits penalty on lap 314 of the race. So that was it. And by the way, looking at the penalty report, there was 13 penalties on pit road, whether it was entering or exiting pit road. 13 guys throughout the race were nailed for speeding on pit road, and that included Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin, Jimmy Johnson, Joey Logano, Jimmy Johnson, Chase Elliott. So there were some big names in there. Do you think we'll see that again today?
Hopefully not. NASCAR's not NASCAR, but these drivers are pretty good about if they get busted somewhere. They usually really focus in on that issue, because Harvick would have won the race. He was the fastest car on the track last year. So it cost him the race as one little mix-up, penalty, whatever you want to call it. He screwed up.
Yeah.
That one's on the driver. When you speed on pit road, entering or exiting, that's on the driver. And it ended up costing him the race. So you'll see him paying a lot more attention to that this week.
And NASCAR really went an extra mile with the teams last year. I know we were having some issues with pit road speeding penalties through most of the season. And so NASCAR actually allowed teams to test entering and exiting pit road while watching the software that catches them speeding, so that they can figure out where they're going wrong, which I think is a rare insight, because a lot of times these sanctioning bodies and tech officials, they don't like to let you know how they're catching you, because then that just tells you how to get by it next time.
Yeah, NASCAR's never had that problem. NASCAR's always been forthright, whether it's was a template issue, whatever it happened to be. They told you where you were breaking the rule. And what the guys have always tried to do is when they get into the section where their pit is, between the pit road lines, the timing lines, they can just nail it and come flying into their pit box, because they know they're going to be there for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
They know there's no way they're going to speed in that segment, and they can nail it trying to get out.
Was it last year they added, midway through the season, they added more timing lines, or was that in the off-season last year?
That was in the off-season last year.
Because that was, there used to, if there was 10 timing lines, what you were talking about was if your pit box was at the very end of one of the timing lines, you could gas it and dive into your pit box, because you're going to spend more time in that box, in that timing box, while in your pit stall, so they could take advantage of that a little bit. And then they doubled the timing lines, so that really restricted teams to be able to do that. And I think they were having a tough time. And eventually the teams just figured out, well, we can't take advantage of that anymore. Speaking of pit road, we saw it on Sunday. Now it's going to become a real factor. I don't think pit crews are as important at the super speedways as they are at every other track, because half a second, a quarter of a second, even a second on the track, on pit lane, is huge on the track, where under a yellow flag caution, you're all bunched up in one little group. we've seen the restriction down to from 6 guys over the wall to 5 guys over the wall, which added what I've been seeing about 4 or 5 seconds to pit stops.
Well, it seemed like a half an hour.
Yeah.
It seemed like they were in that pit box forever. I mean, now you've actually got time to go grab another beer or go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see guys working on that a little bit. They took the modified air guns away from everybody too. The Gibbs teams, JGR had really come up with those real good air guns. And when you stood on pit road, you could hear them.
You could pick it out because it was. I mean, it was a clear difference, and they had a massive. Well, I wouldn't say massive advantage, but they had enough of an advantage.
Yeah, and so we'll get a few races under our belt, and they'll probably come up. One of the pre-race shows will probably say something about that. The pit stop times have done this, and having that air gun has really hurt a couple of these teams. Well, to me, having the fancy, and I don't want to say fancy air gun, but the hopped up air gun, the real fast air gun, however you want to put it, was the work of JGR doing their work, doing their homework, and making their team better. I don't have a problem with that, but it was killing some of the small teams.
Yeah. Because now, who knows how much money in research JGR poured into that gun. Now, every other team has to pour money into it, and we've talked about it for years now. Money is the biggest issue in this sport right now. There's not enough of it coming out, and way too much, or not enough coming in, and way too much is going out. So NASCAR's really narrowing down, and this was one of them. They went to all one gun, and I think, does NASCAR manufacture, or they just regulate it?
I don't know exactly what they're doing with that, having worked on NASCARs, and it wouldn't be surprised if you had to go check the guns out from NASCAR.
Yeah.
If NASCAR is bringing all the guns to every race, and you go get probably 3, because you probably get a backup, but you sign out a group of 3 guns, and then you got to bring them back after the show. But it will definitely, here and now, because Atlanta should have, just the way the track lays out and the race lays out with segments, there should be more green flag stops.
Yep.
Now, granted, if they have a bunch of crashes, obviously, then you're going to have all yellow stops. But if I remember correctly, last year in this race, there were a lot of green flag laps. I don't remember a whole lot of cautions. And exactly what they've done on pit road could, show up and make some difference in the race.
Stage 1 today at Atlanta will end on lap 85. Then Stage 2 will end on lap 170, and the race will conclude at lap 325. Rough days this time last year for Denny Hamlin, who finished 38th after finishing 8th in Stage 1. Ryan Newman had a rough day, finishing 35th. He finished 6th and then 3rd in Stage 1 and 2, respectively. Austin Dillon, who was last weekend's Daytona 500 winner, finished 32nd. You had Dale Earnhardt Jr. finishing 30th. Eric Almirola in the 27th spot. Jimmy Johnson finishing 19th, and that was probably because a lot of those speeding penalties. I was joking before, he did only get 2 of them, but that's still too many to be able to really recover from that. Looks like Ryan Blaney was the last guy on the first guy a lap down, sitting in 18th spot. Danica Patrick was the last car on the lead lap, completing 325 laps. So that's the way it rolled out. Again, Brad Keselowski got the win, Kyle Larson second, Matt Kenseth third, Casey Kane fourth, and Chase Elliott rounds out your top 5.
No, we're pre-recording on Thursday. As of right now, there's only 36 cars entered in the show, and that's not good for the sport. You don't know if there might be 1 or 2 last-minute entries, maybe a couple of these teams that did okay at Daytona, or maybe if they wouldn't have torn their car up at Daytona, maybe they'd be entering.
Yeah.
But the entries are actually done several weeks in advance, but you can still enter late. You pay a little bit of a penalty. I'm not sure what it used to cost $800 to enter a race. I think it's double that now, or somewhere in that range. And then you'd probably pay a couple $100 penalty, so it's probably $2,000 to enter the week of the race. But you might see some teams show up. You might see a team, especially a smaller team, if they don't tear anything up and they can justify the money. You might see somebody pull a backup car out.
I mean, if there's 36 cars starting, you might as well pull a backup car out and go run for 20, 30, 40 laps and get some 36, 37, 38, 39th, and 40th place finishing money.
Well, you've got to have a qualified driver to start with. I mean, you've got to be able to put his seat in the car and all that type of stuff. So there's a lot more than just throwing the thing out there.
Yeah.
You know, at a track like this. If this was Bristol or Martinsville, there's a lot less involved with it. You know,
and that's a show we're going to have to dive into because, it's starting to become more and more of a glaring issue with NASCAR. We saw it last year. We saw it the year before. There hasn't been full fields consistently throughout the Cup Series, and there's a multitude of reasons why. I'd love to sit down sometime and get some people in here. And oddly enough, I would love to get Joey Sperano in here and talk about some of the stuff because Joey's a very knowledgeable guy, and I do love battling him on Facebook.
Oh, he comes out, his one last week said, why don't they just make a rule where you only get 6 chassis for the whole year?
I'll correct you on that. He said, "What if?"
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He didn't
That's
suggest
correct.
it. He just said, "What if?" And it's an interesting concept. You know, they've got to find ways to save these team money.
When they originally designed this car tomorrow with the chassis and everything, they expected them to just be able to have, a handful of cars. They didn't need super speedway cars, intermediate cars, short track cars, which is what they developed before. But anybody that was in the sport knows once they figure this stuff out, they're going to have the intermediate cars, the short track cars, which is what has happened.
Unfortunately, it's the same problem we have on the local level, that a guy who shows up and spends $1,000 doesn't have as good of a chance of winning as a guy who spends $10,000. So everyone's got to spend $10,000. And now in order to beat that $10,000 guy, you got to spend $15,000. And before you know it, the guy that was spending $10,000 is now spending $20,000. He's still winning, and everyone else has now got to up their ante and spend a little bit more. Money is, unfortunately, the best way to get to victory lane in this sport.
And it's called the cubic dollar.
Right.
It's been called that in the sport of auto racing for as long as I can remember, and I'm going to say back to the early 70s when I really got involved with it. But they do limit you, in short track racing. You used to have the guys that were running 500 plus cubic inch big blocks, and then the short block came in, and now the small block came in as a way to take weight off the front end. Well, now you've got guys making that big block horsepower with a 430 cubic inch small block. It's crazy what they're doing with the motors these days.
It's way too expensive of a sport, and we're starting to really feel it. The NASCAR is starting to feel it, and unfortunately, whether you want to believe this or not, what happens in NASCAR is going to happen down in dirt track. We've been seeing it for years. NASCAR was immune to it for quite a while, and now it's ever since 2008, 2009, it's really started to take an effect, and I think the economy at that time had something to do with it, and there's no cure for it now, or there's no instant cure for it now. It's going to be a tough road to get it back to the predominance that it was.
And to me, when I look at some of these moves NASCAR's doing, like a guy by the name of Jim Cassidy, when I first met him, was the liaison. He came to all the tracks for the Busch All-Star Tour. It was in the late 90s, and would get all the contracts signed for NASCAR. He'd be at Corning, he'd be at Sunset, etc. Early 2000s, he had moved his way up where he was doing the same thing and working. He was at all the Truck Series races with us. The last several years, he's been with the Cup Series. Well, now he's been promoted, and he is now like the head honcho with what's called NASCAR International. They're going to try and start doing a bunch of stuff in Europe, and I don't know if anybody else had heard the news, but locally, Jimmy Smalls, who was the president of Iowa, was he the president?
Yep, he was president. He was the
Iowa
youngest
Speedway.
track president on the NASCAR circuit.
And Dan and I would interview him every year. We'd always have him on the show, and we'd talk to him when we were at the Speedway. But he's been made, I think, vice president of competition with NASCAR International, I think is where he ended up, or head of marketing or something.
I can't remember what he got, but yeah, he was promoted into that role.
Yeah, he's no longer at Iowa Speedway, and he's going to be with the NASCAR International and reporting directly to Jim Cassidy. And so we don't know what that's going to do with Iowa Speedway,
Their new track president was the former CEO and executive producer for the Motor Racing Network.
MRN, correct.
And they're still owned by NASCAR, formerly owned not by NASCAR, not owned by a branch of or a division of. It's formerly owned by NASCAR. And people ask me this all the time. I think there's a Cup Series race coming. I just don't think it's anytime soon for Iowa.
Yeah, it's a ways down the road. I mean, if they start deciding that they need to listen to the racers, you had a lot of vocal racers the end of last year wanting more short tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And
fans, too.
Well, the fans have always wanted it because the racing's so much better.
Right.
But if they listen to these drivers and start putting some short tracks together, Iowa Speedway's going to be getting a race if they decide to listen.
And I think with this Drivers' Council, it's a new era. I've been saying it for a couple of years now. There's a new era of communication between the sanctioning body and the drivers. We've never seen this kind of communication before. But the sanctioning body is very interested in getting the drivers' input on how to make these corrections and get the fans back in the seats. And you saw it with I assume Rico Abreu was the one who went to NASCAR and gave him this idea of kids get into the races for free. And immediately after he talked about it on our show, you saw the announcement from NASCAR that the next season they were going to start discounting prices and getting kids into the track for free.
Yeah, whether he actually did that or not.
Yeah, and whether it had anything to do with our show, it probably not, but I'm going to take credit for it.
There you go. But what I was going to get back to when I started talking about Jim Cassidy going to this NASCAR International, as sad as it sounds, my thinking, knowing what I know about the way they function, is it's almost like NASCAR has given up on the American market. I mean, they tried the diversity thing. They tried going and getting the African-American things, and now they've actually got a driver that ran second in a race. Maybe they've got somebody that can bring some of that in. But they tried to go into that market. They tried to go into the Hispanic market. They went to Mexico and raced a couple times.
When you talk about the Drive for Diversity program, I want to tell you that it has been very successful because Kyle Larson is a graduate of that program. Kyle Larson is not a full-blood. I believe he's part Asian, part Japanese, but he's a graduate of that. And like you mentioned with Darrell Wallace, he's a graduate of that program. But continue, sorry.
Correct, but I'm talking about getting the fans in, not bringing the drivers up, but getting the fans, to come in and see that stuff. Because let's face it, you go to a NASCAR race, you do not see a lot of African Americans.
Absolutely,
it's just not their thing, so to speak. Even at the local level, I have noticed though lately, the last few years at I-80 Speedway, there have been more. And good, bad, or otherwise, it's just an observation I'm stating.
I hear you.
And but I really do think that NASCAR has given up on the local stuff. It's kind of like, we've lost this battle. We've tried this, we've tried that, we've tried this, we've tried that. And I think their last attempt here is this driver council. We'll listen to these guys. I mean, they're all invested in the sport. It's not like they're going and taking a guy that runs in the truck series and he's done 3 races in 10 years.
Yeah.
They've got the big names in the sport that they're talking to on a weekly basis. And I think they're are trying to listen to them. I mean, one of the things that this council helped come up with was like the charter system and stuff. And you and I have been on different phases on that. I still don't necessarily agree with it because right now you've got 36 cars coming and they've all got charters. Everybody's in the race,
Yeah.
But even at the Daytona 500, when you had 40 cars, so 4 cars weren't in the race, but they were all in the race because they only start 40.
Right.
You still saw them go out in the duels and tear cars up.
Yeah. Because they're competitive. But that doesn't have to do with the charter system.
Exactly. It doesn't, but it's not very smart.
To tear up cars?
To waste the money. They keep talking about we want NASCAR to save us money, and so NASCAR's doing all these different things to try and save them money, but...
Let me see your sheet right there. I forgot to bring this point up, and it completely slipped me a little bit. NASCAR paid points for the duels this year.
I knew that.
And I'd forgotten all about it, that they'd passed that. So there was a little bit more reason for those guys to tear up cars, because now Ryan Blaney, who did end up scoring the most points at Daytona, has 58 points to his championship driver standings versus what he'd had last year, which would only have been 48 because he won one of the duels. Anyways, continue on.
Yeah, so like I said, there's so much going on in this sport right now. NASCAR is trying to rectify it, but I don't like the move with this new division, NASCAR International thing. I just don't like where that's going. They're going to try and go to foreign markets, and that's where they're going to focus. They focused for a couple of years on the Mexico thing, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things, and I know this because I was actually still active with the sport when they were going down there, and they just said in the garage area, if it wasn't bolted down, it disappeared.
Yeah. Well, I'll see where NASCAR goes with this international program because, listen, I hate to break it to you. This has been news for about 40 years now. we aren't the biggest country in the world anymore.
You sure?
There's other countries that have larger population, larger economies, and more influence on the world market. It might be a good thing.
They don't have more NASCAR, though.
That's what we're working on. There's one inherent thing that NASCAR has that all other sports have also, but that's excitement. And it is an exciting sport.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've got a lot of work to do because the economy of the sport has changed a lot of different aspects of it. We talked about that final stage at Daytona. It doesn't make sense to push to lead lap 5 after the second stage when you don't get paid for anything. They rolled around in a line for a while there because it was the smart thing to do. And every once in a while, these drivers are very smart. They can be very smart. Now, when it came down to when it was time, they tore up all their equipment, just like we can expect them to do it every Daytona and every Talladega.
Every race, they're going to tear up the equipment to win.
Right. In order to push that excitement level, quite frankly, you've got to tear up some equipment. Somebody's got to put a nose under somebody else, and they're going to end up in the wall, and they're going to collect the field. Somebody's going to rub somebody else, they're going to cut a tire. That is a level of excitement that everybody wants. The problem is that when NASCAR begins to produce that level of excitement that we're all looking for, it costs money, and teams don't have that amount of money to keep forking over for that to be the level of excitement. So there's a lot of work left to be done to start to clean up this the issue that NASCAR has. But
well, the one thing that I am going to correct you on, because you totally missed the mark when you said it doesn't pay anything to go out and lead lap 5 of a stage 2 or a stage 3. Mm-hmm. Anytime the leader is on TV, it is paying revenue for that sponsor.
Yeah.
So it does pay to lead laps.
Okay, I agree. I can see that. I'll take that for you. Let's see. One other point I want to talk to, and this is all going to end up on the podcast, so we thank you if you guys listen to the YouTube channel and listen to the extended portion of the show. I've heard a lot of rumors, and, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Carl's coming back?
Carl's coming back. No. When you start to hear the same rumor from multiple sources and there starts to be articles written on it, it begins to carry some legitimacy. I still don't buy into it, but we're hearing more and more that NASCAR could be for sale. In my honest opinion, and I think you're going to agree with me on this, I think it could be the best thing ever if NASCAR was sold away from the France family.
Well, anything is always for sale. Right. There's always a number.
Hey, I hate to break it to everybody. I-80 Speedway and Eagle Raceway, they're for sale.
Always are.
Take a low 7-figure digit check out there, and you can be the proud owner.
Boss.
Yeah. Anyways,
you can be the boss. Yeah. No. NASCAR being sold, obviously, $18 billion. This isn't going to be,
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to carry the money that it would. That's an obvious statement. That's a dumb statement because it's a pretty obvious statement that it's decreased in value over the years.
Absolutely.
The issue they're having with the title sponsorship with Monster Energy not answering them if they're going to be back for 2019 and 2020 to continue their contract is a big point because anybody that's interested in buying this sport is going to have to be a business person that's smart enough to figure out how to turn a profit on it. And right now, I think the sanctioning body is having a real issue turning a profit.
Well, I doubt they're having an issue turning a profit. Making the profit that they want is a whole nother story.
Good point.
Because
better wording, yes, thank you.
Because they're doing what they think they need to do to put butts in the seats. Mm-hmm. It's misleading when you look at the track, on what you can see for people there, especially for the last several years. You and I noticed last year, we thought there was more people at Kansas in the fall race than there was in the spring race. Mm-hmm. It looked like, ticket sales had gone up. That's definitely a plus. Whether they actually had or not, we didn't sit and count everybody.
I'll tell you that ISC, the mother company that owns Kansas Speedway, did see a 1% revenue increase over 2016 for the last half of the season. Okay. The first half of the season, they saw I believe it was a 2% decrease. Okay. So overall, they lost 1%, but that playoff system brought in an extra % of revenue.
So what we probably saw was probably correct. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the grandstand was not packed.
Right.
But it definitely looked like there was more people there in the fall than there was in the spring. So our observation sounds like it was pretty good. Mm-hmm. they've gone back to allowing the coolers to come in. Now, obviously, that cuts their revenue because you don't have to buy their alcohol, their soda, their sandwich, whatever. But if you walk into the grandstand and you go to the little tiki bars they've got on the end, they're just jammed with people.
Yeah.
You know, and they're buying the race car beer and everything else. Now, they don't charge for parking.
Yep.
Well, they do have areas where you can pay to park. They've
Right.
got some premium parking, but for the most part, you don't have to pay to park, and that's the way most of the tracks are. So there's plenty of money to be made. It's going to take a smart mind to come in and resurrect what, honestly, and what anybody that knows anything about NASCAR is going to agree, Brian France screwed this deal up.
Yeah, I think he's, again, like with anything, I think there's a multitude of causes to the effect that we now have. Brian France certainly didn't help things. That car of tomorrow was an abomination to the sport, and it really hurt.
But that was a Brian France-led entity,
You're right. He was trying to make it more of a younger demographic with that car, more of a
trying to get the race grinders. There you go.
Making it look like the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift kind of a thing. And he tried it and it didn't work, and now we're suffering for it. I don't think NASCAR can ever get back to where it was. I don't think any sport will ever return back to its peak. Look at baseball. They're doing fine now, but they had the steroid issue, and during that pre-steroid time, they were at a massive peak. I mean, the ticket sales were insane, the contracts were insane, the TV deals were insane, and now it's all come back down to level. We're seeing the NFL is starting to feel the effects of the national anthem stuff, the concussion and the aggressiveness and the gang violence and all this stuff. They're starting to see the effect, and they're starting to shrink a little bit. The problem with the world today is not necessarily, and this is probably a bigger conversation we could have sometime sitting down at Quaker Steak and Lube, but it's a diversity thing. Where 20 years ago, anything you had, there was a couple of them. There was a couple of convenience stores. There was a couple of grocery stores. There was a couple of dirt tracks. Now, everything's multiplied, and there's so much options. I mean, if I go 5 miles, I'm going to hit 4 gas stations, where before I might have hit 1. Too many NASCAR races, too many other opportunities for fans to just do things that you don't have that entertainment dollars anymore that go devoted just to NASCAR. Now I can go watch a movie, or now I can go watch a baseball game, or no, I can go do this. There's so many other things that are taking that entertainment dollar away that, yes, NASCAR had their own contribution to the demise. But there's other factors that are going to stop NASCAR from fully returning to where it was.
Well, one of the things is some of the exciting racing that was like at Atlanta Motor Speedway that led Atlanta and Charlotte, that led to the 1.5-mile boom in the tracks, because they went and they built Texas, they built Las Vegas, they built Kansas, they built Chicago. Kansas and Chicago are definitely in northern markets. Mm-hmm. But why they had to build the exact same track, I think if someone like Newton, Iowa Speedway at 7/8 of a mile would have been built in Kansas City, the racing would be so much different than what you see everywhere else. Half of Texas fans were people coming from Omaha or Nebraska and Kansas and stuff and driving down to Texas, because I've made that drive many times myself. But now you can go to Kansas and see it. So it hurt 2 tracks, You didn't draw enough people to make Kansas, super functional. When Kansas opened in 2001, you had to get into a lottery system to get a ticket there, or you could spend, it was like $1,500 to buy your own seat. Then you bought your tickets on top of it.
Yeah, seat licenses were crazy back then.
But that stuff's not there now. All the races being on TV is one thing that's hurt that, but the exact same track over and over and over and over and over has hurt that.
There's too many 1.5-mile tracks, and the tough thing is for the politics, how many times a year do we get asked, when is Iowa getting a race? It's got to be 10 or 15, right?
And all the time.
Unfortunately, NASCAR has put themselves into a corner to where they can't just decide, okay, you know what? Iowa Speedway is going to be on the schedule for the Cup Series, and we're going to kick one off. Because The other half of the France family owns half the NASCAR tracks, while Bill Smith owns the other half. Bruton Smith, thank you, owns the other half. And they frankly, they've got NASCAR into a bit of a corner to where NASCAR can't make the right decisions sometimes because they got to answer to his sister or to the guy who's paying him a ton of money through sanctioning fees. It's backed him into a bit of a corner, and a new ownership group coming in and saying, no, we're doing this. The old Bill Senior days. How many times do you hear those stories of, I don't care, we're going to do this?
Right.
Sometimes you got to put your foot down and do right by, do the thing you feel is right, So that's there you go. There's a nutshell. Thank God we just solved all the problems.
Yeah. Now only if anybody send the tape of this or or something.
Let me get approved.
Florida.
Let me get approved for our NASCAR credentials before I send.
Why? What good's that do? They still don't let us in.
That's true. That's very true. All right. Anyways, story for another time. The race today at Atlanta again. Coverage is on Fox and PRN starting at about noon. The picks are locked at 1 o'clock, and the green flag should wave just shortly after at about 1:15. So again, coverage on Fox and PRN for today's race at Atlanta.
Yeah, and anybody that's just listening on the radio, we have a whole bunch of show that we just did a bunch of talking that's been edited. Go over to the YouTube or to the podcast and re-listen to Turn 4.
Yeah, head over to our Facebook page, and you can, at about 10 a.m., we'll post the YouTube channel, and we'll try to get you a link for the Stitcher channel, too, so you can listen to the full thing. It's just a full conversation about our opinions on some of the things that are plaguing the sport lately. Kind of getting some things we haven't been able to cover because we're too busy talking to drivers and promoters and track owners and that kind of stuff. So some good information there. You're always welcome to chime in on the Facebook page and let us know what you think. That's going to do it for us today on the Front Stretch. Make sure you tune in next weekend as we will be joined by the driver of the number 53 late model in the Super Late Model Series, the Malvern Banks Super Late Model Series. That is Andrew Kaziski. And then we're also working on sitting down with Mariah Bade, sister to Chantel and Shaylee Bade, one of the 3 Bade sisters that is currently racing throughout the Midwest. We'll talk to Mariah about her plans for 2018. That's all coming up next weekend on the Front Stretch. Good luck today for Atlanta. Make sure your picks are in on time on NASCARPoolsOnline.com, and we'll do it all again next weekend. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. This has been the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
Have you ever watched NASCAR, dirt track, or IndyCar and thought, I could do that? Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the place to put your money where your mouth is. Races fire off every 10 minutes, so what are you waiting for? Get to Joe's Karting on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs, next to the Mid-America Center, and find out how easy it is to drive a race car. Each Joe's Karting car is powered by an eco-friendly Honda engine capable of a 14-second lap. That's if you're as good as you think.
The official watering hole of the Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Soon the flowers will be blooming, and we'll all be busy enjoying the beautiful Midwest spring. With the arrival of spring, we all know ridiculous summer heat is just around the corner. A simple preventative maintenance plan from Eccles Heating and Cooling can make sure you're as cool as a cucumber during the hot summer months. Call Pat today for your preventative maintenance plan, or ask about a new energy-efficient Starr HVAC. Eccles Heating and Cooling is there for you at 402-331-1755.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.